What are some green flags early on in dating that the relationship should become serious? By Ask Reddit.
You go on a road trip together and still like each other at the end of it.
Absolutely. Traveling together in general is a great test of a relationship. My boyfriend and I have traveled internationally together 3 times now. Twice while dating and once before we got together. Packing, airports, cabs, foreign languages, etc. Being able to navigate all the potentially stressful aspects of traveling and still have a good time together is a huge green flag in my opinion.
Yeah, it wasn't early in our relationship, but I was a little anxious before my boyfriend and I embarked on a month-long trip abroad because I was worried being around him literally 24/7 would get on my nerves. Nope. It was a fantastic trip and his company was never irritating at all, even when we had to deal with typical travel stressors. That's one of the reasons I know he's a keeper. Long trips are a great test.
Lost a girlfriend to this. She decided it was the perfect time to talk about some somewhat delicate relationship issues and I'm an easily stressed driver. Did not end well. Edit, maybe UN. Fortunately we did not crash, but I may or may not have lost it a little and started yelling like a caveman while foaming at the mouth. Not my proudest moment.
We're waiting.
It ended like Thelma and Louise.
Someone banged Brad Pitt?
By all means, tell us the story.
Like. You guys had an accident and she died.
Is she still alive or?
Bill Murray.
Easy for a man of extreme wealth to say lol. Thanks for the tip though, Bill.
Camping teaches you the same things about each other.
The ability to apologize. If your partner never sees their faults, it'll never work.
To tag onto this, apologizing, admitting they were wrong and then correcting their behavior. If needed. Apologizing like it makes it okay to keep doing the crappy thing they were doing is a red flag.
I say at least attempting to correct behavior and showing effort. Some traits are hard AF to break.
I would rephrase this as a willingness to apologize. My husband was never really taught how to make a proper apology. As weird as it sounds, it is kind of a skill that can either be learned to do right or wrong. His weird apologies always made me feel worse. I quickly discovered he never really learned because his whole family sucks at it. My husband was definitely willing to learn and adapt, and to me that is the more important thing.
Close. I would say not the ability to apologize but the ability to take inventory of their actions and learn, change, do better. I have met too many people who apologize then do the same goddamn thing over and over. Sorry, but your apology means nothing now.
I never apologize. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I am.
I apologize but do have some trouble avoiding repetition of mistakes at times. I also have a hard time forgiving myself for my own repeated mistakes, which ironically only makes such mistakes more likely. I'm trying to see myself through the lens of gradual improvement instead of a binary, you keep making mistakes, versus, okay, you're perfect now. Since I'll never actually reach that ideal goal state, it can be very difficult to change behavior, and in many cases is a long grueling process, and not so much a switch I can just flip. I want to improve, and I also want patience and forgiveness for repeated mistakes while I'm figuring out how to do so.
And that's the mark of a truly great partner. That they'll acknowledge your faults, but recognize that you're trying to improve and not hound on you or belittle you for continuing to make the same mistakes.
You genuinely enjoy one another's company during dull moments. Life's full of them and you are going to want a partner who you can enjoy them with.
I think silence is underappreciated in relationships in general, not just in romantic relationships. There's an oceanic feeling when you're with a good friend just quietly taking in the whole world around you.
Oceanic is such a good word to describe this.
Aim for Pacific. Hope you don't get Arctic.
Totally agree. I'm finding a lot of people are uncomfortable with silence or a lack of stimulation, and it's kind of difficult to deal with.
Big one. I too am noticing how much people like to fill silence. I think I do it too to an extent with folks I'm not 100% comfortable with. But in a partner, I need someone who enjoys quiet and amp. Stillness a lot and amp. Is okay with those comfortable silences.
This is pretty much what I'd ask of my soulmate. I want them to be available, not on top of me. I want to be able to at any time go, hey, check this thing. Respect each other's space.
When my now wife and I were dating, we started having introvert dates where one of us would come over and we'd just craft or work on projects in the same room, sometimes talking, sometimes putting a show on in the background. It was so cozy and domestic, like we already lived together.
My girlfriend and I did similar things in college. She'd text me and ask to come over to sit in bed with me on her computer while I played video games. We'd sit there for like 3 or 4 hours without speaking and then order a pizza and carry on. We still never talk sometimes.
Some of my favorite times are when my boyfriend comes over to play video games while I work draw. It's nice just to be able to relax and not have to be on all the time.
Miss you, Ron Swanson.
Love this idea, it sounds great.
I call it being alone with someone else. It feels very different than when you're actually alone, despite the fact that you might not interact at all.
Yes, my boyfriend of 8 years and I love grocery shopping together. It's like a little weekly date night. Everyone probably thinks we're crazy, but we hold hands and laugh and plan all the meals we'll make together for the week. It is one of our favorite things to do together.
I don't care if that sounds lame to some people, my wife and I do the same thing, and oddly, it's kind of fun. We waste almost no food anymore, always have breakfast and lunches pre-done for the week, and it just makes us feel like we rule at adulting. Saves money too, and since we're making some healthier changes, helps avoid temptation.
During our first date, driving together to go on a hike, occasionally the conversation would lapse and there would be moments of quiet. But it just felt right, it wasn't awkward or uncomfortable at all. Married 17 years so far and still happy.
Oh, for sure. Like, as long as my wife is physically present, I'm happy with the company.
You're just having a lovely quiet moment and you're not thinking, I need to think of something to talk about. Those are the best.
Encouraging growth, but doesn't try to change your foundation.
I'm kinda in a hard place with that with my GF, male. Ever since she was little, she always ended up learning things on her own and can't stand trying to be taught things. She wants to go hunting with me this fall but doesn't know how to shoot guns. She wants to learn how really badly and isn't afraid of guns, but she won't let me show her how to or go to an instructor. The other thing is she is too afraid to sing around others. I am a total audiophile and am an intermediate musician and love to sing along with the songs on the radio or my Spotify. She listens to my playlist as well and knows the lyrics to lots of the songs but never sings with me. I really want to help her grow and I'm not sure how to do it. Edit. She doesn't want to learn how to shoot on her own, she just doesn't like being taught things.
Just singing in front of her with no pressure to join in would probably, eventually, make her feel safe enough to try. But the gun thing? Hoo boy, that is not okay.
I second this. When my wife and I first got together, she told me how insecure she is about her singing. Her family has very talented singers and it didn't help when her own mum backhanded a comment she was given by someone else. Then here I come, with my constant and loud singing. It felt weird at first as I'm not used to singing in front on anyone except my immediate family. But I didn't want to feel weird around her, so I kept on it. A year later she starts to sing along with me, and before long she's actually wants to do karaoke night for once. My advice, don't rush it. Keep doing it around her and make her feel comfortable about it first. She'll eventually come around and follow your lead.
Never go shooting with her unless she allows you to teach her. That is not something to learn on your own. Like driving, it's something you need to be taught. Honestly, her not wanting someone to teach her about shooting and wanting to learn it on her own would be the hill I'd die on. Maybe literally. That would be a deal breaker for me. Guns need to be respected and one should never feel too comfortable around them.
1000% this. A small mistake could mean serious injury or death. My husband and I talk through all the safety rules of shooting every time we use them. We also have a very strict rule of not going shooting with anyone who doesn't follow those same safety rules.
If they respond well when you are dealing with a crisis situation, or when you are seriously ill, or when your family member is seriously ill, they may be a keeper. In other words, how do they interact with you during times of stress? Does their presence, behavior help? Do they make it worse, or do they make themselves scarce?
When my relationship was brand new, my boyfriend came over late one night to relax after playing a show. It was storming, downpouring outside, and we were cracking open some whiskey. Suddenly, my cat started yowling as if he was in pain and making frequent, unsuccessful trips to the litter box. He has a history of kidney issues and I thought he may have had a stone lodged in his urinary tract, a pretty emergent issue. I apologized and said I needed to run him to the animal hospital ASAP. Our cozy night in is over. I'm so sorry, you can stay here if you want, but I totally understand if you want to go home. My boyfriend didn't miss a beat, refused to leave our side and helped me get my cat into his carrier. I was really upset, crying. My cat is elderly and the thought of him having an emergency procedure was so scary at the time, but he treated both of us so gently and was a huge source of comfort. He even took his overshirt off and covered up my cat's carrier so he wouldn't get rained on the way to my car, getting soaked in the process and not acting like he was bothered or inconvenienced. I was completely taken aback and deeply touched. This was the moment I began to fall seriously for him. It's been 3.5 years now and he continues to show deep compassion for people, animals in need, and is so helpful, comforting and wonderful in dark, stressful times. Also, my cat was absolutely fine. The vet said he was just having an off day. A $400 off day. Cats, edit, changed shirt to overshirt. He wasn't topless at the emergency vet.
A $400 off day. Cats. I know that feeling. It was very expensive for me to learn that my cat just likes to yowl before and or after using the litter box. There's absolutely nothing wrong with him other than him being a fat idiot. Cat tax, since this got a lot more attention than expected.
Mine did something similar to Op's cat in the story, except the answer had been that he'd stopped drinking water from his bowl because he didn't like the bowl. Also a $400 bill. Because he didn't like the bowl and was thirsty. Cats.
My cat stopped liking his water fountain during a record week-long heatwave where all the fans were sold out. He got pancreatitis because he refused to drink water that wasn't direct from the tap and on his schedule. So if you tried to make him drink while you were home, he wouldn't do it. He's lucky he has us, cause his stubbornness would get him killed in the wild. Face with rolling eyes.
Mine was constipated because she'd suddenly quit drinking from the cat fountain. Apparently I wasn't keeping the water level high enough and she doesn't care for the louder splashing noise it makes when it's under 3/4 full. $400 for radiographs and an enema, because she's too chonky for abdominal palpations to work.
Mine was mildly constipated and ran howling around the house at 4 a.m. one day because he had a turd hanging halfway from his butt. He was still open-mouth breathing after he worked it out, so I rush him to the emergency vet. $1,200 later and I learned he's a fat anxious asshole who occasionally gets constipated and panics about it. Woman facepalming.
Do all cat owners low-key hate their cat?
Easier to love someone else's pets.
Nah, we just like to talk trash about them. I love my little poos to bits.
Pretty much, but we also love them. You'd have to own a cat, or a young child, to understand.
I'm allergic to both.
You can get one of those hairless children who don't cause an allergic reaction. Just be mindful of the kid spitting, that can still itch.
My wife of 21 years and mother to our 2 sons said I got that second date because I was nice to her cat. I love animals and always have. She said other boyfriends would be mean to the cat. I knew something was up. I didn't have the charm to get a second date on my own.
Why would anyone be mean to a cat? I love them all. Especially if you want to date the woman again who has said cats.
Completely agree. She said they'd flick him in the balls and stuff. Young dumb boy stuff. I guess I wasn't up against the best competition. I am glad she stuck with me. I love her dearly.
What the F is wrong with people?
Thank you for the visual of your hunky boyfriend ripping his shirt off to keep your cat dry. This is entirely the story in my head now.
One of my boyfriends once did that, but only to fight my brother over lost Oreos. It was a mess, so now I'm adverse to people taking off their shirts.
Another solid green flag there. Willing to fight your siblings over Oreos.
Only if they win.
What an amazing yet short story.
This is an amazing story. I'm sorry, but I laughed at the $400 off day because I feel your pain. As annoyed as we get for speeding the money, we would do it again in a heartbeat.
Isolation was doing a number on my relationship for a hot minute, cooped up, not seeing friends, nothing to get excited for, just generally feeling down and irritable. My partner and I were bickering more often about stupid little things and we just weren't feeling great about things for a bit. Then we went on a drive down a forested dirt road to scope out possible campsites for the weekend, and ended up losing our brakes entirely, which had been inspected the week before but evidently not properly, followed shortly after by a flat tire. Then the spare also ended up being flat. Reminder to check your spares regularly. It was getting late and help was on the way to meet us back at the main road, but to get to it we had to get down a steep hill without cell service, with a drop-off on one side. With no brakes and a tire so flat it was basically hanging off the rims. It was not a good situation. He literally had to go down the hill in park with the emergency brake on to keep us from gaining speed. We were super in sync for it, kept our cool, talked our way through it, and all was well. Afterwards, we both felt way better about our relationship because when poo got real, we were partners working through it together. We worked through the little things and we've been doing great.
My wife and I like to go kayaking on our anniversary. The first time we went was when I was 3 days out of detox, weren't married then, still sober. We just showed up, rented a kayak, and headed out, with no regard for the tides. It was so much work. Especially getting through tight bridges and working against the tides. It was a great day, and we had to work together to keep from both getting exhausted at once and losing ground, water. Point is, I feel you on this story. It was a defining point in our relationship. I felt like poo, still in minor withdrawal. She was worried about me, just trying to keep my mind off alcohol. But during those few hours, it was just us, working together to literally stay afloat. 5 years later, she still has the selfie we took in the kayak as her background. Her explanation is that in a rough time, a hard day, we both were truly happy, big smiles and all. I wish you and your partner the best.
This is super important. About a year into my relationship with my now ex-BF, I had a medical emergency and needed to be in the hospital. Once home, and still in a great deal of pain, he didn't offer to come over, help, nothing. I actually told him over the phone that I would really like his company. I live alone with my dog, and he said that it was too late to come over. It was 7 p.m., and that I should just go to sleep. Winner there.
One time a girl I had been with for a couple years skipped visiting me after major surgery in favor of going shopping with her mum.
I was dating a girl, and for my birthday she took me to a hotel so we could just pretend the pooty part of our lives didn't exist for the day. That night, she couldn't sleep because the bed messed with her hip, so she snuck down to the floor. When I woke up and realized where she was, I took the blankets and pillows down to her and slept there too. She thought it was really sweet. I mostly just didn't want her to do what I would have done. Wake up not remembering I was not at home and scream like a child.
The bed messed with her hip. I'm just imagining an anthropomorphic bed with a crowbar, baseball bat. But that story sounds so sweet. Thanks for sharing, smiley face.
They say that the true measure of a person is how they respond in bad times, not good times. Many people are saying it. The best people.
Believe me.
Yes, yes, yes. Literally last week I got the worst food poisoning of my life. I'm talking like TMI warning, coming out of both ends constantly for 24+ hours. My boyfriend and I have only been together 2 months. He was by my side the whole time, constantly asking me what I needed, wanted, bringing me water and fluids. It was so comforting and made me realize how I would not have felt that with a lot of my past relationships.
Yes, same here. When I had food poisoning way back in 2019, I was on my hands and knees being sick to my stomach in my partner's bedroom. He was just about to drop me off at home when I felt it coming on, and I was so embarrassed because it had been such a chill, pleasant evening beforehand, and I was the only one who got sick from dinner. I was throwing up for quite some time, but he got me a blanket and some water while asking what else I needed. He made up a futon for me, beside the garbage bin lol, and made sure I had quick access to the bathroom as well should I need it during the night. I stayed over that night and he dropped me off at my place before his early shift the next day, but I felt so loved and looked after.
That sounds great. In contrast, I considered it a bad sign how my ex, we'd been dating for around 2 years at that point and were living together, responded to the worst food poisoning of my life. It was coming up out of both ends for around 12 hours including lots of blood. We had been sleeping on the futon and I had to get up all the time. I spent hours in the bathroom that night and I was seriously sick. I told her about all the blood. But she never came by or asked how she could help or I don't know, rub my back. She'd go back to sleep right away if me getting up from the futon or coming back woke her up. It makes me sad to think of. When she puke I'd do whatever I could to help her feel better.
I feel this. I got food poisoning while pregnant. My husband just slept. I hadn't even been able to keep down water, and when I tried to wake him up to go get me some ginger ale or something, he said, "Sure, gimme a minute," and stayed asleep. When he had finally woken up, he played video games while I thought I was dying. Should have gone to the cause I was pregnant and severely dehydrated at that point but couldn't drive myself. It sucked.
So you're saying I should have dropped him like a hot potato when, after my grandma died, he complained I didn't lean on him enough and too much and my mum? Luckily, 8 years together, he ended up dumping me the day after I attempted suicide.
I hope you're feeling okay now.
That's how I fell for my guy. We started as a rebound thing, but a few weeks into the relationship my mum was hospitalized. I was a little lost and somehow decided that I wanted to blow off some steam, so I called him, and instead of just banging me, he asked how I was feeling, actually listened, and then cuddled me for a bit until I had to go stay the night at the hospital. I've been in love ever since. It's been 9 years, and it only grows, damn it.
When you can talk forever about pretty much anything, and when something you have different opinions about becomes an interesting discussion rather than a fight.
Important. If you cannot air out your problems making necessary accommodations and have different opinions, do not think it will magically change when in relationship.
I actually know a girl who thought all of her and her boyfriend's problems would just magically disappear once they were married. Spoiler. They did not, in fact, disappear.
There's also the evolution for this though, having kids will make all problems disappear.
Oh yes, the old, save the relationship, baby. Never a bad idea.
And totally a good way to not scar a child.
I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. She spoke. I hate you. I hate you. I hope that you choke. I hate you forever. I wish you were dead. I hate you. Now let's have a baby, she said.
That'll solve the issue. In Morgan Freeman voice. Little did they know, it would not solve the issue.
And if one baby doesn't do it, maybe two will.
That's the thing people don't realize. It's not that having the kid didn't fix their problems, it's that it didn't fix them enough. If you have 12 to 15 kids together, I guarantee your problems will be solved.
Your problems will probably change with 15 kids at least.
Hard to constantly fight with your partner when you're constantly fighting morning sickness.
Next is buying a fleet of jet skis and painting them like X-Wings and TIE fighters and then making a huge Death Star laser tag lake to race them around on will save our relationship.
If this doesn't save the relationship, I'm first in line to come replace the exiting partner.
We couldn't save the relationship, but it was a hell of a weekend.
One of the best compliments I ever received came from a close friend of mine when we were discussing some issue. I don't even remember what it was. I said, well, I think I just fundamentally disagree with you. And he said something like, yeah, I don't think I know anyone I'm more comfortable fundamentally disagreeing with.
And you are also comfortable not talking.
Yes. When silence is not awkward and does not need to be filled, it can take a while to be that comfortable with each other, though, also in good relationships. Not an easy thing early on.
I love being able to talk to a guy about anything and everything for what feels like 5 minutes, but it has been hours and hours.
This is so important. My wife and I have been married for 20 years, we have 4 kids and we can still sit in bed and talk until one of us says, crap, I have to be up for work in 3 hours. Fortunately, this doesn't happen often, but I treasure when it does happen.
Also, you don't have fights. You have discussions about things and come to reasonable conclusions and apologize for mistakes. They also let go of the problem afterwards.
I asked my devout boyfriend in our first conversation if it would bother him that I left my church and was now an evil apostate. His response: well, first of all, thank you for asking.
Being able to make each other laugh. Understanding the other person's sense of humor is critical in long relationships, and besides, do you really want to get serious with someone who can't hardly make you laugh or smile?
This is so important. I don't think people realize how many arguments can be avoided when you understand when someone is joking. Goes for relationships and general life relationships.
I just broke up with someone who didn't understand that unnecessarily serious answers to funny, controversial comments is a form of humor for me and that my feelings are not hurt. Until I read this, I didn't realize how much strain this little fact had put on our interactions.
I once went on a date with a girl who was a fan of a rival sports team. She said, IA___fan, I hope that's not a problem. And I responded, not as long my team keeps winning. And she got offended. I interpreted it as an invitation for a little playful banter, not a serious question.
Man, that's the sort of thing that would be a 10 out of 10 response in my book. Just goes to show how different people can react to things. And GT, and Lieutenant.
If this makes you feel better, I laughed smiley face at the fact you think your team would win. Seriously, nice joke, haha.
I went on a date early last year with a girl who was a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. I live in New England, so no obvious rivalry, and I'm like, whatever, but for whatever reason she thought it'd be fun to talk for like 5 minutes about how much she hates Brady and the Patriots, after I said I'm a fan of them. Anyway, I laughed my ass off when Brady signed with the Buccaneers.
But also know when they're not in the mood and give them space. My older siblings were best friends for the most part, but my brother could never figure out when my sister wanted silence, and lots of passive-aggressive fights resulted from it.
I try to make my wife pee her pants laughing at least once a week, smiley face.
Noticing the other does not take themselves too seriously. In the very early days of dating my now husband, we took a long road trip for a romantic getaway in Boston. The first night in town, expensive dinner in a famous seafood restaurant. The server brings the bill and takes my date's credit card. Server comes back with the news that the credit card was declined. Both he and I burst out laughing at the same moment. That was my green flag.
Maybe he knew it would and you paid. It was a ruse, I say.
The long con.
How did the waiter react to you guys bursting out in laughter, though? I am not sure how I would react tbh, seems like an awkward but rather hilarious situation.
Servers don't care. I see people's cards get declined every single day and they always have very varied reactions. Once had an old dude who pulled out one of those like plastic sleeve roll things and he tried like 8 different cards before one finally took, and he was commenting the whole time that he needed to clean the damn thing out. Half of these are expired. Another lady who just rolled her eyes, muttered, "That little poo," then paid in cash. A Hispanic lady once tried to pay with a Mexican bank card, and when informed that we don't take that kind of card, she tried to pay in pesos, which I had to explain to her that I didn't know the exchange rate and we don't take foreign currency. I've also seen married couples bicker over the fact that the card got declined and it devolved into a full-blown domestic that was happening at my register. You just stand there and wait for it to be over. Nothing else you can do.
Probably just thought, well, I'm not getting a 20% tip on this check.
They're okay with spending time apart. A significant other, or even just a friend, that can spend their own time alone and doesn't absolutely need you to be happy is a major green flag. You should make each other's lives better, not become each other's entire lives.
They're okay with spending time apart. We just celebrated 15 years together, and I believe this is the single most important part of us being happy together for that long. We're both hobby and career-driven individuals that have our own workspaces at home where we like to escape and do our own thing. We also often chill in the same room while doing our own separate things and just enjoying each other's company. Respecting each other's needs to do things alone and not needing to do absolutely everything together is really the key to our relationship working as well as it does.
I've been married 4 years. This is one thing that I noticed when we first started dating. I'm a pianist, and I like to practice. She's not a musician, but she did play as a kid and still has her keyboard. When we first started dating, there would be nights where I'd go over to her place and I'd feel totally comfortable practicing for hours while she read or did work. We were just instantly comfortable in each other's company without feeling the need to constantly pay attention to each other. We paid plenty of attention to each other. It just never felt like it had to be constant just because we were together in the same room. I realized I was able to just fully be myself while incorporating her into my life, and she felt that way about me. We didn't have to compartmentalize. In past relationships I had my work life, my personal hobbies, and my relationships all in their own separate boxes. But with my wife I've been able to have everything meshed together.
I didn't realize this until recently. My guy is an introvert, so I set my expectations as he is going to need alone time. Give him space, so when he asks to hang out it's nice. It's also great to not have someone rely on you for happiness, and I also feel good for not having to rely on him for my happiness too. Al thought we do make each other happy, smiley face.
I feel like this is the most important tone.
Can someone here help me with this? How does one ask for alone time without it becoming a fight? I love spending time with my partner, but I have hobbies and get zero time to spend on them. My days are spent on a job, and the evenings are spent with my partner. They on the other hand are a writer, and being a night owl are able to spend all night writing when I am asleep. I feel myself building up a lot of resentment because I want time to spend on my hobbies, but it always becomes a fight when I suggest that I get some alone time. Can anyone suggest a good way of broaching the subject?
Put your foot down about it, but be sympathetic. Sometimes you need time alone, and you aren't going anywhere. If you spend time alone one night, you'll still be there tomorrow to spend some time with them. Let them know how you feel, that you feel like you have no time for your own hobbies. Maybe suggest some kind of schedule, or an organized date night or something.
My BF and I are both relatively introverted, and we discovered early on that we could say, "Hey, let's charge our social batteries," and it meant that whoever said it needed some time alone. I like phrasing it like that because it is pretty neutral and not so much, I need time away from you, even if that is what is implied.
The only issue I bump into with this is I like my alone time, but worry about how much time she wants together. Sometimes, she does explicitly say she wants some alone time and I happily grab my friends and hop in Discord. Sometimes, she seems like she wants alone time, but gets a little upset because I misread her not wanting to watch something more interesting, talk, or otherwise engage more as wanting alone time rather than a quiet cuddle time.
They get your humor and laugh at the jokes you tell. Edit. God damn. You guys just more than doubled my Reddit karma with one post. Lol.
Unless it's puns. Then you both mutually use puns and think the other person's puns are terrible.
But they laugh at how bad they are. That's the marquee of a good relationship, that you guys have some weird sense of humor in little world that nobody else really understands. You can just be weird together and it's great.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.